Hi everyone, welcome back to Mountain Clammer. This is my physics-based rage game, which I originally made back for Game Jam in 2020, and a year later decided to make a full release of. And now after a long period of on and off development, here we are with Devlog 3. This devlog is bringing some real big changes, the biggest of which being a lot of behind-the-scene engine stuff. That includes updating to a newer version of Unity, a newer version of FMOD, my audio middleware, switching to the universal render pipeline, which I don't believe was default back when I started the project, so I've had to manually do that. And the most important engine of all, my PC. I built a new PC, I finally downloaded Visual Studio because of that, so no more Notepad++. And over the course of this video, we'll get into all of that along with what it means for the game. But first, let's start with audio. We're gonna be talking a lot about FMOD today, and I kinda wanna just real quick dive into why I use it and why I'm upgrading it. So rather than using Unity's built-in audio engine, I like to use FMOD as an audio middleware because it allows me to use loop regions, alternate arrangements, and put effects on individual audio tracks, all without missing a beat, quite literally. Essentially, you can think of it like a digital audio workstation for your game development, which feels much more at home to me as a certified music guy. Now, a lot has changed since early 2020. In FMOD. They have completely changed how you reference audio events in code and updated how you alter parameters as well, and so it's much more streamlined now, which is way more artist friendly. But that does mean I'm gonna have to go back and change everything about my old code and FMOD integration. Since I was never able to get the old parameter method working in my game to allow in-game events to change the music, something I actually touched on in the original devlog for Mountain Clammer, this was a great opportunity to finally fix that. All I had to do for this simple update was get FMOD to the newest version, 2.0299. Everything blew up. I need to resurrect the project out from under this pile of bugs and errors. To get started, I just wanted to make the game work again, so I marked out literally everything that had to do with FMOD in the code. I had to do this manually, and it took a lot of time, but after I did all of that in the code itself, I then had to delete all the FMOD files from the Unity project folder and then re-download the integration package. And then repeat that process 2 more times because I kept downloading the wrong thing. But finally, once the errors were no more and FMOD was totally gone, I started adding back the new FMOD references. And there we go, we're back to normal. We're officially on the new FMOD version now, so let's finish a goal from the original jam and make the music adaptive. It can't be that bad, right? This took several hours. The process itself is fairly straightforward. I just didn't know where to start looking to fix an issue I was having. But once I realized I needed to switch the parameters from global to local, I got it working in Unity, and the music is adaptive now. Just for now, I have a low-pass filter that's put over all the tracks, but as you get higher and higher in the level, that filter gets lifted, revealing more of the frequency spectrum, and tracks get unmuted. That being said, now that we're on this new version, a couple new problems are happening. Maybe it has to do with the filters and parameters, but tracks are desyncing sometimes, and so like the toms and percussion will get out of time from the bass and the synths and stuff, so I'm gonna have to figure that out. Also, the audio is just not behaving and it won't loop for me, and I'll get that figured out for next time as well. For the past, 4 years, I would say, I've really wanted to build a computer. I've never built one, I've only bought pre-built PCs before, and I'm happy to say I was finally able to save up enough to buy this guy. This is the first one I built. It took 6 hours one night. I still have some cable management, so don't judge me too harshly, but some parts of note in this guy are a 3070 Ti, 32 gigs of DDR5 RAM, 2 1TB PCI drives, and it's got an i5 13600 processor. No more chugging in DaVinci Resolve, FL, or Unity. Granted, Mountain Clammer doesn't cause a lot of strain to a computer, but it's nice having literally none as I work on the game. So now let's get back into the game world and talk about some gameplay stuff, and we'll start with Jellyfish. Ever since I made it so that the clam would rotate and flip around, the jellyfish stopped working. They initially would bounce you up, and now they bounce you in whichever direction the top of the clam sprite is currently facing as it hits the jellyfish. This was a pretty simple fix. I just changed it from transform up encode to vector2.up encode. And now it bounces appropriately no matter which direction you're rotated. Another glaring issue I've had for a long time is that you were able to grab through walls. This is obviously a big problem in a platformer, and it allowed you to do things you were never supposed to do. And I finally fixed this by adding the ground layer to the grabbable raycast layer mask. That raycast layer mask, grabbable raycast layer mask. Ugh. That's rough. And that's kind of it for gameplay, just those two things. I only fix these things as they come up. For the most part, the main mechanics of the game are actually settled. There's just a few tweaks and bugs I find that crop up, and I fix those when they show up, but there aren't really any big features I have planned. This is part of why I want to get my vertical slice of the game done quickly. If you've watched previous devlogs, you know that I'm working to try to get a demo version of the bottom quarter of the map done, and this would be huge for me because I can send the game off to testers and let people beta test it, and then I can actually know what gameplay things I need to add or get ideas from people. If you can think of any mechanics or features that would work well in Mountain Clammer, I would love to hear it. Please leave a comment below. I'm looking to add a few more things to the game to just make it more fun and give it more personality, so I'm open to anything. The other big update of this devlog is the universal render pipeline. Now let's talk about the process of actually updating this thing to the URP. For the original game, I just used post-processing. It was a crutch I used to spice up the visuals of rough pixel art and cubes. And now I think we can move past that. I'd love to tell you that I'm making a super nuanced tech-savvy decision in switching to the URP, but honestly, I just want to make my pixels light up in fun colors. That's it. I think it'll be cool. I think it'll be fun. So we're doing it. The best way to guide myself through this process was following Unity's official tutorial. They have a pretty good explanation of how to switch everything over. It basically just involved adding a new package in the package manager and then changing the sprite's materials, which Unity did for the most part on its own. The setup was much simpler than changing FMOD, and it only left a couple stones unturned that I had to fix. These stones ended up being sprite sheets, tile maps, and particles, which just needed to get a new material updated. And so now on the URP, this is rad as heck. It is rad as heck. Tons of potential for cool little things with this update. And what I've done so far is that the whole scene is darker and will light up as you go up. You have a little light attached to you. And I mean, you're in an ocean trench, so it makes sense to have everything be super dark. There's a tiny bit of global light so that nothing is in complete darkness, but for the most part, you can only see what's right around the clam. But as you go up, I'll increase the intensity of that global light, meaning you can see more as you get closer to the water surface where sunlight's coming through, all that good stuff. Now the anglerfish have real lights, and this is really adorable. You can see it on the clam. I love this so much. I love these little anglers. Look at them go. There are also God rays, and these I'll use to mark important areas or just scatter around to add interest to otherwise emptier parts of the map. I'm gonna make them move around and wiggle at some point, and we'll come back to me trying to do that in a little bit in this video. So with all these cool new lights in the game, let's talk about what these lights will actually be lighting. I filled in more of the aesthetic map tiles. I'm still doing this by hand. It's kind of relaxing to just put on a video and place speckles around the map. I made the collision particles chunkier. I still need to decide on a resolution for the game and make everything actually work with that. I'm just gonna keep putting that off. The horseshoe crab don't float no more. He just needed to be adopted and have his parent set his correct coordinates. There's now detritus particles, just kind of crap floating around, and I'm surprised because it really makes the game feel more underwater. The bubbles pop now. This might not be realistic for underwater because the air doesn't have anywhere to go, but they do split up into more bubbles and I can't keep particles around forever. But they're programmed to play an animation on collision, and they have a real sprite now. In a surprise of working on the game recently, I found the clam's trail renderer. I had totally forgotten about it. I haven't seen it in so long. It was just hiding at like Z-45, behind the camera background. But I found it just through working on the game, and now it's back. I think I still like it and plan on keeping it, but we'll see. I'll see if I can do something cool with it. And now, the last part of the visual update, we've got two friends we need to cover. Let's start with our old friend, the Cuttlefish. I said it last time, and it's coming true this time. It's getting a makeover. So say hello to the 4 times larger resolution Cuttlefish. Functionally, it's still exactly the same. There are a few things I just wanted to change though. I wanted to make the colors match the palette of the game a bit more. Everything is in the very cool color spectrum, and I still need to decide on a palette too. Let's get that under there. I made its tentacles more tentacly. Before they were like 3 pixels wide, and now I actually have room to do that, so I made it more wiggly in the animation. And it's still kind of upright. Cuttlefish swim very supine. What? It's a real word. It means like to lay down. Go buy a dictionary, you dork. But I don't know, I like the pose. And that's the good old Cuttlefish, looking great, fitting in with everybody else. But now we've got a new friend who isn't just any new friend. That's right, it's Little Man in a Big Ocean Time. And this installment is about manta rays. I love me a good sting / manta ray. The ones from the hotel in Mario Sunshine, excellent. Mr. Ray from Nemo, pretty cool. That one guy from Splatoon that I don't know, but he looks really fun, yeah. A while ago, I had the idea of occasionally just at random seeing huge sea creatures swim by in the background of the game. I thought it would make for some really memorable moments that made everybody's playthrough really unique, and it just seemed like such a cool idea that I had to do it. And so here we are with a manta ray. Mantas are super majestic, and there's something so alien and yet also kind of comforting about them. The way they glide through the water, but then if you see them from underneath, they just kind of have a goofy smile. I really love them. And making this guy for Mountain Clammer was pretty interesting. It was a very different process than I've ever done before. I'm learning to animate a lot of very odd-shaped animals for this game. I hope it comes in handy someday. And because these mantas are in the background, they should have simple, muted colors, and so that made animating a complicated shape and motion much easier. And even the way they spawn is pretty cool too. So the mantas are spawned by parent manta spawners, which are enabled by the manta spawner. And I know you already studied that in 3rd grade, it's basic science. Then there's a coroutine which every 15 seconds has a 33% chance to activate them all simultaneously. And that might seem weird to have a bunch of mantas moving at the same time, but it works because they're far enough away that you'll only ever see one at a time. The last big thing I did for this devlog was attempt to make my first ever shader. Shader graph is a mysterious beast to me, one of unfathomable scope. But to bring up Adam Eunice, he dropped a video at the perfect time going over exactly what I needed. He showed an example of watery wiggling, and it was an effect that I thought would be perfect for parts of my game. So I just followed what he set up to a T, and it worked pretty well, after not working well for a while. Originally, I thought I could use this as like a filter to go over everything in game, but I don't think I actually want that. It wouldn't look like the game is underwater, it would look like the game is drunk. And in a game that's already hard to control, that would just be annoying to the player. But it does work really well on plants, and it'll be great to add motion to things I don't want to manually animate really subtle frames for in pixel art. So I now have a working shader, but my plan to make the game look more watery didn't really work out. So I need to do some other things to make the game appear underwater still. I tried to add this wiggle shader to the god rays, but because the god rays aren't actually sprites, they're lights, it wouldn't affect them, and I'm not familiar enough with shader graph to figure it out yet, so I'll come back to that later if I want to do that. The other big things I can think of to help the game look more wet is when the clam moves fast, when it passes a certain speed, I want it to leave a wake in its path where you can see the water getting pushed out of the way. And kind of in that same vein, more bubbles. I definitely need just more bubbles everywhere. And that's it for Mountain Clammer progress. It's wild how different the game looks and even sounds now. It's really come a long way, and a lot of hard work went behind the scenes support for this devlog, so I'm excited to take advantage of that with fun additions to follow. There was a lot of technical stuff and annoying trial and error just to get things working the way they used to, but now I can get to the fun part of making new things. The vertical slice of the game inches ever closer, and I'm excited to say that when it's done, I'll be putting up a free demo version of the game on itch. I don't know when exactly that's gonna be, but it'll just be the bottom zone, and I'd like to test early and test often to catch bugs, to catch soft lock spots, and get general feedback on the game. So, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss when that happens. Thanks so much for watching. Please leave a like on the video and leave a comment if you enjoyed and want to see more. I'd love to hear features you think would go well in Mountain Clammer, or if you're a fellow game dev on YouTube, I would love to know about your channel, so leave a comment and telling me what you're working on and that kind of stuff. Any extra engagement you're willing to give, I super appreciate it. It really helps my videos survive in the algorithmic Wild West that is YouTube. I'm Cornboy, and I'll see you next time. The dogs are barking again, and the AC just came on, and it's gonna be too loud for me to get this recording done.